Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So I welcome you all again to the fifth day of the 7-day workshop, uh, kind of week-long course on Western philosophy organized by the Bhaktivedanta Research Center. And today, Professor Chakraborty is not here, so I shall be your host, so to speak. We have a few changes in today's program. As you would have known that I would be the first speaker and I will be speaking on knowing others and knowing myself. The second speaker is Dr. Monideepa Sen. She will be speaking on self-knowledge and agency. The third speaker is Dr. Manoj Panda, speaking on phenomenal consciousness and natural world, revisiting the debate between materialism and anti-materialism. And then we have a change. Instead of Professor C.A. Tommy, we shall be having Professor Prosenjit বিশ্বাস speaking on Jean-Luc Nancy on existence. So there is this small change in the program. Okay. So um, I don't need to be introduced anymore because I have already spoken to you. So today I shall be, I had declared my topic as knowing others and knowing myself, but from the kind of feedback that I have already got about uh, uh, our group here, I thought that it would be more interesting to concentrate more on our knowledge of our own selves rather than going into the nitty gritty details of the difference between knowing others and knowing oneself. However, I shall be touching upon it quite extensively, but I thought it would be interesting to have a bit of groundwork done before I go on to it. Another thing that I thought I should be doing uh, is that I want to relate the issue of self knowledge with the kind of things that you have been hearing for the last few days. So, what we have had in the last few lectures is a kind of introduction to uh, Western analytical thought. And you have had a great deal of introduction to philosophy of language, right? So I thought that the uh, particular question regarding self-awareness that is related to issues that analytical philosophers had been discussing in philosophy of language would be a very interesting thing for you because you already have that kind of background. And I also thought that it would be good because the next lecture, which would be on self knowledge and agency, would be, this would be a kind of precursor to it. Okay. So without more introduction, I go on to the lecture. You can hear me, can't you? You can hear me, right?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. And now I'm going to share a screen. Tell me if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, um, when in philosophy we start talking about self-knowledge, and since we have been since our childhood exposed to uh, Indian philosophy, we think that we are really asking an extremely deep question, a question which can be, you know, uh, phrased in the typical Greek way. Who am I? The Greeks believed that they were playthings of fate. Christians saw themselves as miserable sinners, and Descartes thought that a man was a thinker. Liberals stressed self-determination, romantics self-expression, and Freud would invite you to go lie upon the couch and discover yourself. So with this, quote from our porter, from his book, Rewriting the Self, I start my lecture. So one would think that, when we are discussing self-knowledge, we are asking this question again, can we know who we are? This is the question. However, we are not going to ask that deep, existential, spiritual, or metaphysical question. Rather, we are going to concentrate ourselves on a epistemological question which can be uh, addressed from the perspective of philosophy of language as discussed in the analytical tradition. And today I shall be doing that. Okay. Why can't I change the slides? Yes. Now, there seems to be no the problem of the self and no the problem of self-knowledge. But we only have a kind of variety of conundrums that we, encounter when we try to reflect upon the self and the knowledge of it. And the Sankhya philosophers say that there may be many reasons for errors in perception, one of which is proximity. If you hold something very near your eyes, you cannot see it. And the problem that we have regarding self and our knowledge of self is precisely this, that it is such a near thing. It is so near to us that we find it very difficult to understand what it is that we are every day aware of and how we may characterize that thing that we are aware of every day so intimately. This proximity and intimacy seems to act as a kind of barrier. Okay. So the self, which is quintessentially proximate to us, and the awareness of which is ever present in our consciousness, is ironically both evident to us and also extremely remote. So what we seek to do in this lecture is to show how we conceive of ourselves is not only important, but it is in a certain sense, constitutive of uh, our idea of self-knowledge itself. Now, you see the title of this slide. I have three phrases: knowledge of self, self-knowledge, and sense of self. Okay. So what do we mean by all these phrases? Why do we have these three phrases here? There are many ways in which we may talk about self-knowledge. If we look at classical Indian philosophy itself, then we find at least three ways in which self-knowledge has been discussed. Self-knowledge in the sense of self-consciousness, and Galen Strawson has termed this as the sense of self. Okay. Then we may talk about a theoretical knowledge regarding the true nature of self, the kind of thing that is the business of the philosopher. Okay. And then there is a third sense in which Indian philosophers have spoken about self-knowledge, where they, by self-knowledge, they mean self-realization. Self-realization, which forms a central part of the emancipatory project of Indian systems. Okay, so that is also a kind of self-knowledge, self-realization. Okay. And there is, another very important uh, uh, sense of the word self-knowledge. And we shall see that in Western traditions, since the time of Descartes, this self-knowledge has gained great importance. By self-knowledge, Descartes meant knowledge of our current mental state. Okay, so knowledge of our current mental state. Now, there is a belief that our discussion regarding our knowledge of our current mental state can be made without uh, a discussion regarding our knowledge of the true nature of ourselves. I find this belief rather naive to think that we can talk about self knowledge without having any idea about what kind of entity we take ourselves to be is very naive. And our tradition, uh, the Western tradition, has been, in a way, uh, uh, blind to the naivety in this supposition that we can really separate uh, our questions regarding how we see ourselves, what we think we are, and the question, how is it that we know our current mental state? How do we understand our knowledge of our current mental state? These two things, since Descartes, it seems that these two things have been separated. And I feel that this has been a mistake. And it has been a very informative mistake. If we look into the tradition, we will understand that actually Descartes had a very particular way of understanding the nature of self. And that is why he has seen self knowledge, that is, knowledge of our current mental state, in a particular way. And yet, he has thought that these two things are completely separate and can be discussed separately. Okay. And I would like to, encourage you to consider my proposal that these two things are essentially related. And these two things were related within Descartes. And the kind of analysis of self knowledge, that is, knowledge of our current mental state, that we get from Descartes is because he saw the self in a particular way. But he sort of tried to give us this impression that, he was not talking about metaphysics, he was not talking about the nature of self, but he was starting right away from self awareness, our awareness of our current mental state, and as if no one could question him because that what was his presupposition less a beginning of philosophy. I'm sure you already understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the cogito, right? So, we all know that, Descartes starts with his philosophy by saying that, he has to uh, have a kind of firm foundation, an indubitable first principle on which he can really build up his philosophy. And this kind of first principle is given by his cogito. Okay. So the belief is that, we cannot be mistaken about our own existence, because in order to even doubt our existence, we need to exist. So that is the spirit of the cogito. And what is it that we cannot doubt? We cannot doubt doubting. Okay, so what is it that we cannot doubt? We cannot doubt our current mental states. Why? Because they have a peculiar character. They have a very, very peculiar character. What are they like? They are self-presenting states. Okay? They are self-presenting states. What does that mean? It means that, for example, I have a current mental state right now. I think that, I should not be showing this slide because I have digressed from the slide and I'm talking on my own. So this is what my current mental state. My mental state is that I shouldn't be showing this slide. Okay. So uh, why is this current mental state called self-presenting by Descartes? Because, if I have the mental state, it will be presented to me. And if it is presented to me, I have the mental state. So the distinction of the state being there and the state being presented to me, there is no distinction between the two. If I have the state, I am presented uh, mm, with the state. And if I'm presented with the state, then I have the state. So this is the kind of primordial, certain truth that Descartes hit upon, and he tries to say that we know our own minds in the way that we know nothing else. Okay, actually, I'm going to stop presenting because I'm just um, talking to you. Okay. Are you with me till now?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So actually, this Cartesian principle gives us uh, uh, a kind of understanding of what self-knowledge, according to Descartes, is. He would think that self-knowledge has three properties. Because, our mental states are self-presenting, they are immediate. Okay? So, why they are immediate? Because I cannot articulate any independent ground for claiming that I am in a mental state. In fact, I do not need to articulate any ground for claiming that I am thinking, that uh, I need to say this or that, or I'm feeling a slight tinge of headache, or I desire to drink a sip of water. I don't need any independent articulatable ground for claiming the knowledge of my current mental state. On the other hand, in order to know what you think, what you feel, what you believe, what you desire, I need evidence. Okay. So because I cannot see any of it, I have no idea what you are thinking. In order, for example, if I want to know what Akramul is thinking, I have to write him a message on WhatsApp and say, Akramul, what are you thinking? Or if I have to, uh, uh, you know, I have to understand how Pinaki is feeling today. I have to ask him, Pinaki, kemon acho tumi? Pinaki is going to utter a few words. He will make a few sounds. And from those sounds, I am going to infer his mental state or his state of his body, if I'm asking about how he is physically. If I need to know whether what I'm saying makes sense to you, I have to ask, বুঝতে পারছো? And then I hear something, then what I hear is the evidence for assuming that indeed you are understanding or you are not understanding at all. Okay. So these are not immediate means. These are mediated by inference. Whereas in the case of my current mental state, I do not need any kind of inference. There is another thing that characterizes our mental states, our own mental states. It is said that they are transparent in the sense that they are sort of
Ma'am,
reflecting. Yes.
can I ask you something?
Uh,
When he or she is lying, then how can I know that what exactly?
no, I don't know. It is always a very iffy business. I don't know. Right.
Oh,
One
mm-hmm,
of the things that, so I infer, suppose, Mohua, you are trying to deceive me. Okay.
mm-hmm,
So I ask you, Mohua, তুমি বুঝতে পারছো? And you say, হ্যাঁ, ma'am, বুঝতে পারছি.
mm-hmm,
So when you say, হ্যাঁ, ma'am, আমি বুঝতে পারছি, I infer from this sentence that you are indeed understanding. But there is an assumption, a hidden premise, that Mohua is a truthful person. Okay.
mm-hmm.
Uh, Now, so the inference is going wrong because not I am uh, I am arriving at a false conclusion because one of the premises went wrong. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we have no other way. Do we have any other way of knowing what people are thinking? We have no other way. So it is always indirect. And I'm very happy that Mohua asked me this question. So you see, Descartes also wanted to tell us one thing. He wanted to say that, you see how different our knowledge of our own mind is from our knowledge of other people's mental states. In the case of other people's mental states, we may be deceived. Taina Mohua, we may be
Yes, ma'am.
deceived. That is what Mohua said, that I may be deceived about what Pinaki, how Pinaki is feeling, how what Shottobruto is thinking, what Pew is desiring, etc. But what about myself? No, I can never be deceived about myself. Right? Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So this is the Cartesian insight, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I think that uh, mm, uh, I am in pain, then I am in pain. If I believe uh, about myself that I desire to be mm, a good wife, then I do desire to be a good wife. If I believe that uh, I have a toothache, then I do have a toothache. Okay. So from here comes another property of our knowledge of our own minds, the property of incorrigibility. Okay. So we have not only an immediate, transparent knowledge of our own mental states, but we are always correct about it. Nobody can correct us. That is why we are incorrigible. Incorrigible means impossibility of being corrected. Okay. So self-knowledge seems to be characterized by all these things: incorrigibility, immediacy, transparency. Okay. And if we certainly believe that, then we at once notice that there is an asymmetry, an inherent asymmetry between the way we know our own mental states and the way we know the minds of others. Okay? So we at once say that we have a kind of first person authority. So we have a kind of authoritative access to our own mental states, whereas I do not have an authoritative access to the mental states of Astik or Tamanna or Shushanto or Shudeep or Shottobroto or Akramul or Shubhra or Pew. I do not have. I have to have only a third person access to their mental states, which is always mediated by some kind of, uh, uh, you know, inference, maybe. Okay. So uh, there seems to be a kind of strict dichotomy between our knowledge of our own minds and our knowledge of the minds of others. And there is a kind of belief that, we know our minds in a very authoritative manner. Okay. I hope you are with me till now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Everything is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. In recent years, there has been a great deal of renewed interest in questions regarding self-knowledge. Now, I would like to bring to your notice why this is so. And now I'm going to start presenting again. Okay. Can you see the presentation now? Can
Yes,
you see
ma'am.
my slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the renewed reasons for renewed interest in self-knowledge is this. There has been a renewed interest in philosophy of language regarding the nature of the pronoun I and the meaning and the interpretation of the pronoun I. Okay. And in philosophy of mind, of course, there has been a great deal of interest in self-knowledge because of, what I said, that how do we understand the asymmetry between knowing one's own mind and knowing the mind of others. And in this connection, there is a very big, discussion regarding whether our traditional conception of self-knowledge is compatible with physicalism, which is a very important thesis, and also with another view in philosophy of mind, externalism regarding mental content. There is also a renewed interest in questions regarding personal identity, and questions regarding personal identity is always tied with questions regarding self-knowledge. So there is a new interest in self-knowledge and personal identity. And philosophers have also understood that self-knowledge has very close connection with agency, about which Dr. Shen is going to talk right after me. So philosophy of action has a lot to do with the questions regarding self-knowledge. Now, what I am going to talk about today is regarding the pronoun. It is about the pronoun I and about self-awareness. So I am actually talking about, you remember that I started off saying that there are 3 ways in which we can talk about, actually 4 ways in which we can talk about self-knowledge. One is knowledge of the kind of thing that we are, then knowledge of our current mental state, and then self-awareness, a sense of I,
Yes, ma'am.
and the 4th was self-realization. So I am actually interested in self-awareness. And I think self-awareness has much to say about the kind of thing that we are and the notion of self-knowledge that we adhere to. And I am just saying that all these things have been, thought that we can talk about these separately. And I think much of the confusions that seem to linger in all these areas is because of this, this kind of, compartmentalization of the discussion. Hmm. The more I read, the more I try to teach, I see that it is difficult for me to, talk about just the nature of self and not talk about self-knowledge or self-awareness, or talk about self-awareness without talking about the nature of the self, because even historically, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. If we look at, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that if we look at history of philosophy, actually people haven't done it, but we are forcefully doing it and we are getting into trouble. Okay. Now, why am I all of a sudden talking about the pronoun I? Because, if someone was to tell me, who are you? Then, of course, I can say that I'm Maducchanda Sen and everything. But, if I was, if it was probed further, if I were asked, okay, that's your name. And then I say, I teach in Jadavpur University. And then someone says, okay, let's forget that because you might not have taught in Jadavpur University. Okay, I am so and so, but you might not have been that. Then who are you? Then I am left without anything but to say, well, I am myself. Okay. So many philosophers have said that, if we look into the word I and what is it that we mean by the word I, then possibly we shall be able to understand what is it that we are. At least we should be able to understand how is it that we see ourselves, which is the person that is presented to us in our, everyday humdrum self-awareness. Every time that I think, oh, I have to do this, do that, etc., I am aware of myself, right? So in these humdrum instances of self-awareness, who is it that I'm aware of? If we want to answer that question, then possibly we must look into the word I. Okay. So I is the name that I call myself. And, the importance of using the pronoun I is felt whenever we want to, assert our identity. And, children may start by referring to themselves by the use of their own proper names. Like, people say, children say, suppose they say, uh, Amy wants candy, uh, Amy wants to go to the garden, etc. But soon they go past using their proper names and they start using the first person singular pronoun when sort of their self-identity dawns upon them. And many people think that, this ability to assume the first person perspective on our own self is actually self-awareness, and it comes along with our ability to use the first person pronoun, as if until and unless I can start using I instead of my proper name to refer to myself, I cannot take the first person perspective. I'm actually taking the third person perspective. Um, so, in order to sort of gain the first person perspective, I have to start using the first person pronoun. And that is why, it is so important for us to understand the meaning, the use, and all that, this use entails in order to understand what self-awareness is all about. Okay. And this is true even in cases of languages which may not have the first person singular pronoun. But there must be some way of announcing the first person perspective within the language in order to have this first person, talk. Okay? Do you understand what I mean by this? এটা বোঝা গেল?
No,
Yes,
no,
ma'am.
ma'am, no, ma'am, no,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Please, আরেকবার বলুন.
Okay. The thing is that there may be a language, for example, where you do not have the first person pronoun. Okay. So one may ask, tell me, your discussion only applies to people who are using a language where there is a first person pronoun. Right? But what I'm trying to say that even in those languages, there must be a way of announcing the first person's presence. There must be some grammatical tool of ensuring that this is my speech. I'm talking in the first person, and there is a difference between talking in the first person and talking in the third person. Okay, is that understood now? And the thing is that it seems that until and unless, I can speak in that way, I am unable, I don't know if I have developed a first person perspective, right? Okay. So people have said that, ability to entertain I thoughts and ability to, do I talk is essential for our self-awareness. Or we may say that they come together. When I'm self-aware, I'm capable of entertaining my thoughts, and I'm capable of, having I talk. Okay. Okay. Now, what are I thoughts? What are I? I'm talking about I thoughts, but what are they? I thoughts are thoughts about ourselves, which involve the first person perspective. And as soon as we think about I thoughts, because we are philosophy students, we might think that this must be some very deep thought. But it is not really, it doesn't have to be a very deep thought, like, what should I be doing? What is my duty here? When we are having a moral dialogue, right? I'm not talking about those very deep, heart-wrenching kind of situations. No, every day we are entertaining I thoughts. Take, for example, myself. Okay, so I'm a householder, I'm a mother. So every day I wake up and I have I thoughts. What do I cook? What need I wash today? What need I buy today from the bazaar? Okay. So you see, these are very simple I thoughts,
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
yeah, they're very simple I thoughts. Now, why do I entertain those I thoughts? Why do I entertain those I thoughts? I always start with this stupid example of my, deciding what I need to buy or what I need to take out of my fridge, etc. Because these are so common, and of course I can associate with it. Now, why do I do that? Why do I think? Why do I entertain I thoughts? Because I need to plan, right? I need to plan. I need to plan my day. So in the morning I think, okay, আজকে তো আছে lecture আছে, বাবা একটু পড়ে নি, etc. Oh, today I have a lecture, I need to prepare, etc. So I need to plan. So this I thought that I entertain and the I talk that I do, when do I do it? Right in the early hours of the morning, I start by having a conversation with myself, right? Isn't that so?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I
Yes,
start
ma'am.
with a
yes,
conversation
ma'am.
with myself. Okay. And if I have my family members beside me and I tell them, আজকে আমাকে যেতে হবে জানিস, ইত্যাদি, right? So who is it that I'm talking to right in the early morning before even I leave my pillow? Who am I talking to? I'm talking to myself, right? I'm talking to myself. This is what I mean by I. This is the I, right? Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So who is this I?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is this I? This
My
I is
brain.
this. No. It is not the brain.
Oh,
Who is this person? That is the person who's going to get up from the bed, go to the kitchen, okay, start making tea, open the fridge, take out the frozen, meat or fish, get it thawed, and all this nonsense, right? Who is this person? This is a person who acts, right?
yes, ma'am.
This person is an agent, right? Who is
Yes.
this person? Is this a Cartesian ego?
No, no.
No, 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 no.
Huh? Is this
Because
a
body is
Cartesian ego?
because
No.
body is involved here.
Yeah, this is an agent, right? An agent who can act. You're talking to that agent. ওরে বাবা এবার উঠে পড়ো,
Mm-hmm.
হ্যাঁ এবার গিয়ে খোলো, চাটা বানাও ইত্যাদি. Who is this person? You can only ask a person to do something if the person can really do that thing. So that person is an agent. Okay. So, dear Descartes, as much as we are intelligent beings with brains, with mind, with reason, etc., we are essentially agents, right? Okay. Okay. Now, if you look at the literature, classical literature on the indexical I, you will see that this agent this aspect of uh, mm, uh, of the self and the meaning of I has been ignored. And we find that it has been ignored not only by the Western philosophers. Okay. This seems to be a problem of philosophers as such. You know, they think that the I is always a kind of, thinking subject. Okay. Only a thinking subject. Okay. So, why is it that they have kind of ignored the other dimensions that there are in our understanding of ourselves? Why? And the rest of the talk, I shall be trying to talk about that. Okay. So, if we look at the traditions in philosophy of language across time and across tradition, then we will see that some puzzles have, worried philosophers regarding the use of the word as. Okay. Let me do one thing. Let me stop sharing because it's creating a kind of disturbance for me. ঠিক আছে?
Yes, ma'am.
What is happening is that I am getting distracted by what is written in the slide, and I've got into a kind of flow. So I don't want to. I don't want to interrupt that. We find I particularly have two traditions in mind. On the one hand, I have the Frege-Russell tradition in mind, and their analysis of the first person singular pronoun I. And on the other hand, I have in mind Godadhara Bhattacharya and Jagadish, the Nobunayaikos, and how they have discussed the first person singular pronoun I. And I find that though these discussions are extremely important and extremely insightful, somehow they are missing the point. Okay. So, what are the problems that Frege and the Fregean tradition, to follow the Fregean tradition, even people like John Perry and more recent times, Gareth Evans have spoken about? They are saying two things. Okay, they are saying two things. They follow the Cartesian tradition, so they think that we have a special access to ourselves. Myself, I am immediately given to myself, okay, and transparently given to myself, and incorrigibly given to myself, okay. And I am not given to anyone else like that, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So Imdadul is sitting next to me. He can see me clearly and distinctly, but the way that I am given to myself, I'm not given to Imdadul. Okay. And Imdadul is not given to me in the way that he is given to himself. Okay. So this made philosophers think that, the way that we are presented to ourselves is unique. No doubt it is unique. And it is also private. Right? Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It is private, right? And কত গান লেখা হলো তাই নিয়ে, তাই না? দেখাতে পারি না কেন প্রাণ? Why can I not,
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
show my mind to others? Oh, right. So all our heartache is about this space, this privacy. I can't show you how much I love you, and I can't see how you love me, etc. And all the melodrama in our lives because of this, right? So we have this conception that we are, given in a very private way to ourselves. Okay. So if we are indeed given to ourselves in this very private, I means what? That privately given thing, right?
Yes.
Do you get me?
Yes.
Hmm.
Now this creates a problem. Why? Because it seems to many that all our I talk, right? All our I talk is directed to the other, right? When do I say I? When do I utter the word I? When?
When I am communicating with others.
When I'm communicating with others. When I want to tell Gunjan, hello Gunjan, I am here, can you see me, etc., etc. Or I want to tell Gunjan, I am so happy to see you, Gunjan, here. Okay. That is when I use the word I. Okay. So if I means to me that thing which is privately given to me, in self-awareness, then how is it that Gunjan is going to get that?
Right.
Okay. So if now I'm using a slightly more technical term. I've tried not to use any technical terms till now. If I do assign an incommunicable sense to the word I in order to capture the Cartesian insight that there is an asymmetry between self-awareness and awareness of other people, then how is it that I can even use the word I to express things to others? Because that is an incommunicable sense, right? Do you get me?
Yes, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what does I mean then? What does I mean then? And you will find in the literature a lot of things said about this. For example, Strawson says in his fine article, Persons, he is saying that self-ascription, when I'm saying I am so and so, self-ascription is always parasitic upon other ascription. Remember this a bit in the Persons. You might have read this, right? So I can talk about myself only if you understand. I mean, it makes sense to talk about myself to others only if the other understands. So the I that I talk about is not the private I that is presented to me in self-awareness. Who is that I? So, and you see, I mean, there is another very peculiarity of the first person pronoun, and for that matter, any pronouns, that they have a very general character. That's why they are called pronouns. Right? So, suppose you hear on the radio someone saying, I need help, I need help. Okay. And you do not recognize the voice. You do not recognize the voice. So you don't know who needs help, right? But do you not understand what is being said?
No, we can understand, of course.
We can
We
understand.
can understand.
We can understand. What is it that we understand? We understand that the speaker needs help. The person who's speaking needs help. So if you see on a piece of paper written, I am hungry, you know the person who has written this is hungry. Okay. So I, according to Frege and also the Nobunoyaikos, has these dual meanings. One, which fixes the identity of the person, and then there is a kind of general meaning, which is nothing but a kind of rule. What is it? Now I'm going into a bit of technicality. Is that it anyone who understands I knows this rule that I means the speaker. So you find the context of this speech, and then you can understand who the I is. So this is the generality that we understand whenever we see I am hungry, or I hear that I need help. Okay. So that is why, in a way, it is communicable, and in a way, yeah, well, it is not communicable. Okay. Now, I have a problem with this. I have a great deal of problem with this idea. Okay. And there is a belief among philosophers that this privately given thing, what is it? What is it? And that is also the view that they adopt is also due to their peculiar understanding of this particular term in language, which is actually an indexical. Okay, I is an indexical. Does anyone know what an indexical means?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. An indexical
No,
is
ma'am.
আমি বলছি, বলার চেষ্টা করছি। For example, all our proper names are unlike these words I. It is unlike the word I. Okay. You have had a class on Russell and Frege, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you know that both Russell and Frege had a very peculiar view about proper names, like, proper names like Tamanna, Pinaki, Shottobrutu, Shushanto, Mohua, etc. Let us take, for example, Russell. Russell would say that all these names, like, for example, Piu or Shottobrutu, they are truncated definite descriptions. Okay. For example, for me, Shottobroto means, what does it mean? It means the student of mine who did his MPhil dissertation with Professor Lopamudra Chaudhuri and has just got his degree, etc., 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 etc. So these are all definite descriptions. And you know that all descriptions are general in character, isn't it? They are general in.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes.
any a description can be satisfied by more than one person, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And that is why, Frege and Russell believed that these proper names or any definite description are not purely referring expressions. So what are purely referring expressions? The purely referring expressions have only one business. What? That is why they are purely referring. Purely referring. What is their business?
That
Their business is to refer. Nothing else.
this or that. This is a logically proper name
Like
for
this,
Russell.
like this or that. And I also, Tushan. Okay. Their only job is to refer. And if they fail to refer, they are meaningless.
It will be meaningless.
Right? Okay. So I is like that. The only job of I is to refer. Okay. So what does it refer? What does I refer to when I say I?
We
If
will
I
pronounce it.
believe that I refers to me, then it is like that. It's just like a pointing of the finger, right? So it has no meaning in it, no descriptions in it. So when I say I don't mean, the teacher of philosophy. I don't mean uh, the mother of so and so. I don't mean the uh, the friend of so and so. I don't mean the Indian. I don't mean the Bengali. I don't mean the woman. I don't mean the person with this body. I don't mean anything. What do I mean then? And this is very beautifully brought out by Godadhara Bhattacharya when he says that it is the individual essence. It is the individual essence. Okay. Now I have a problem with that as well. In spite of the fact that this is a very powerful thesis. This is a very powerful thesis. Okay. And this kind of belief is also associated with the way that Frege and Russell have understood I, and this is really deeply influenced by the Cartesian tradition. It seems to me that within the Cartesian tradition, there has always been a kind of um, desire to get to a kind of minimal sense of self. Minimal sense of self. Okay. Okay. What do I mean by that? And an example will help you to understand what I mean by this. And this example came about when I was having a discussion with my colleagues. We had a sort of small group, and a book actually came out of that, where we were discussing about self-awareness. And one of my colleagues said that, self-awareness is this, that suppose you met with an accident, you had a brain injury, and you have forgotten everything. You have forgotten you are Maducchanda Sen. You have forgotten that you teach in Jadavpur University. You have forgotten you have 2 sons. You have forgotten you're a woman. You have forgotten that, you are barely 5 feet tall. You have forgotten that you are a Bengali. You have forgotten that you were taught in that school, etc. You have forgotten every autobiographical detail, and yet you have retained a sense of I. So this is self-awareness. So I asked them, so what is that? What is that self-awareness? And you are left with nothing but this strange philosophical concept that you are a mere subjective presence. What are you? A mere subjective presence, a kind of first person. Okay. Okay. So you see, in a way, this makes sense, right? Right? In a way, it makes sense that
Yes,
you take
ma'am.
away everything. I may not have been a woman. I may not have been a Bengali woman. I may not have been a Bengali educated woman. I may not have been a Bengali educated woman who's a professor. I may not have been a Bengali educated woman professor who has two boys, etc., etc. I may not have been, and yet I would have been. I would have retained this self-awareness.
Madam,
Huh.
in that case, how you will describe yourself? And if I
That's
ask you
right.
the
That's right.
previous question, who are you? Then what would be your answer?
Right. 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 Thank you, Pinaki. I'm going in that direction. I'm
Okay,
going
thank
in
you.
that direction. Okay. This is what I'm thinking. This is how I am now seeing the entire thing. You know, all these things that are being said are important. You know, that there is a very rudimentary way of feeling, you know, feeling yourself to be yourself. I know there is a very peculiar way in which you feel that you are yourself, right? And all these talk about, you know, the subjective presence or the I being, you know, like pointing, not describing, pointing. All this talk really tells you something. And I honor that. I'm just trying to make sense of that and also trying to make sense of other things. You know, I'm just being a little slow here, sorry, because I'm trying to now gather all the threads and coming to the conclusion. আমি ভাবছি আসলে ভাবতে ভাবতে বলছি now there is really a very significant sense in which I feel myself in a way that I feel for no one else. তাই তো?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম।
Yeah. And possibly I means that. I means that way that I feel for myself. Okay? Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because we are not talking about who I am, but we are talking about how I see myself. How do I sense myself? That is what we're talking about. I may be just a brain in a body. I may be immortal soul. I may be this. I may be not. I may be just nothing. I may be a lot of things. And all these are theories of self. Okay, we are not talking about that. We are talking about how does it feel to be me. We are talking about that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And why is it that it is different from, you know, others? What is it? And it seems to me that, you know, no matter who I am, you know, no matter whether I am the Prime Minister of India or the the you know, transvestite who is finding a very hard time to live in this you know, in this world, judging world, no matter whether I am a scientist or a philosopher, no matter whether I am a woman or a man, no matter whether I am black or white, no matter whether I am educated or uneducated, I am madly attached to myself. Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
This is what is singular to me and my access to myself. Right?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And uh, you know, I would like to point out that
Ma'am, singular means from our first person perspective.
yes. What
Okay.
I'm trying to say is that, I can be to myself a historical in only one sense. Hmm. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really, if you think about it, I cannot be a historical to myself. Whenever I think about myself, I think about myself under certain description, right? Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
okay. Huh. When in the morning I wake up and I said, "Oh, tomaki ki korte hobe? What do you need to do? What do I need to do?" I see myself as the householder, as the person who is going to provide food to three other persons who live in the house, right?
Yes. Yes.
So when I say to myself, oh my God, you have to get ready for this lecture in BRC, I see myself as what? I see myself as a person who is supposed to give a lecture,
Hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When I see myself, when I say, hey, I need to lower my head in order to enter this place, I see myself as a body which has certain height, right?
Right.
So this, when I say I am always taking these different eye positions, right? So in a way, I'm not one eye really. Am I one eye? No. I am changing my positions as and when I understand what I need to do, right? All taking these eye positions. But then again, there is some truth in saying that, I am indeed, there is some common I behind all these I positions, it might seem to you. And that I may be ahistorical in nature. Okay, this was the idea stemming from Descartes. Okay, so how do I make sense of that? I'm trying to make sense of that. So for me, I can be ahistorical to myself only in one sense. And this is possibly captured by the fact that no matter who I am or who I take myself to be, I am attached to myself. And it is this attachment that I have with myself, which is unique, as I am attached to myself in a way that I am attached to no one else. Taina?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
It is this attachment that makes me to decide to act in a particular way and in another way. Okay, this is the attachment makes me do things, right? Right?
Yes. Ma'am, I have a question.
আমি একটু বলিনি বাবা?
ma'am,
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Of course. Of course.
Can I finish up and then
Yes. Of
please
course.
write
Of
down
course.
all your
yes, yes,
Of
yes,
course,
questions?
ma'am. Of course.
Okay. And that I will feel this attachment to myself is identity neutral. Right? Whoever I am. I
Hmm.
may be a murderer, I may be a saint, but no matter who I am attached to myself. Okay. Hmm.
Yes.
But
Yes.
how? Here is what I want to say. But how this attachment is going to pan out actually will be definitely linked to my history, to my socio-cultural identity. Okay. I will feel attachment.